I know on immigration, I think we're in some ways aligned about making sure that we have smart immigration that's we know who's coming into the country. But I wanted to get your thoughts on an idea that I'd been talking with a friend of mine who is an editor for a conservative magazine about whether this idea of civil rights. So when you look, it was actually under the Obama DOJ. They issued a report showing that it was the US Civil Rights Commission under Obama. So that's the framing that it's a civil rights issue. That's what got me thinking about it because I had done some research. It found that illegal immigrants are, when they come to the country, the people whose employment prospects suffer the most are Black men, and in specific, like high school dropout Black men. So they're dealing with competition in things like meat packing or physical labor, construction, things like that. And it statistically, this is what their analysis showed. This is again the Obama DOJ, not my words. I'm just quoting it. They found that they were the most hurt. So my question to you is, do you think illegal immigration has a negative impact on the civil rights of US citizens? And if so, why is there such a backlash when people try to stand up for those civil rights?
Well, I think the question sort of misses the mark because when you look at illegal immigration, one of the things that people refuse to acknowledge is that economically it's a wash. And what I mean by that is that, yes, there are people that come in and use services and don't pay for them, but they also bring in a huge amount of underpriced labor. And that's one of the reasons why, and this is before all the recent consternation of the last few years, is that we don't have a serious immigration policy. I've mentioned this before on the show, is that Democrats have wanted the votes and Republicans have wanted the underpriced labor. But to answer your question, I think I've seen all types of stats as to whom is hurt more than other people and whom is most adversely affected and all that. And right now, I will say on a general level that both income and unemployment for African Americans has never been better than they were during the Trump administration, which in all fairness was better than they'd been prior to any time before that. So I think that the civil rights issue is a tough one because you say, okay, these are people that come across the border. We want to be humane. The immigration system is broken. But one thing we have to remember is to quote Donald Trump. And that is that he said, if there's an immigration mess, blame me. I'm the one who's blocking this bill. And when I say this bill, this is a bill that was crafted by people like James Langford, one of the most conservative people in the Senate, that and so many Republicans said this is the best bill we're ever going to get. It didn't require amnesty for the Dreamers. It didn't require a path to citizenship. A lot of things that previous Democratic efforts have required. But of course, Trump wants to get political points. So immigration situation be damned. He said, block it. And his little compliant speaker said, oh, of course, I'd be happy to. So that's where we are. But it's a very intractable problem. And I still have my hopes up that someday we're actually going to be the first industrialized nation that actually has an immigration policy.
The thing is, Europe and Canada, their immigration systems are much more based on merit. They're based on point system, for example, in Canada, where you can't come unless you are a net contributor to the economy. And whenever someone in the US tries to bring this up, then we're labeled xenophobic, we're labeled racist, even though it's colorblind. It is just based on merit. And even the story of, for example, Nigerian immigrants to the US and Indian immigrants to the US, they vastly outperform white Americans on educational attainment, on household income, wealth. They're the American dream. But they come here because they're self-selected. They don't come across the border up from third world countries where there's no knowledge of who's doing what. And that's why you see people like Donald Trump. The Trump campaign just put out a long list of US victims. Most of them tended to be young, attractive women who were raped and brutally murdered by illegal immigrants. And he uses these cases to show, and even on a less violent level, my friend up in Brooklyn, they have a community school that's Christian, but it doesn't matter, whatever faith it is. It's a community school, and right down the block, they put an adult male illegal immigration center, and you have to go through metal detectors to enter the center in order to screen for weapons. And they're telling the neighborhood, this is safe, don't worry about it. But it's right down the block from this school. So, and then you have them also taking over soccer fields in New York City, where kids want to play soccer, but now they're encampments for illegal immigrants. So it's become this untractable problem to the point where U.S. citizens are seeing their civil rights violated. And mark my words, Dave, you're going to keep seeing this in the campaign.
Well, first of all, illegal immigrants commit crimes at a much lower rate than Native Americans. So yes, of course, there's always going to be isolated examples. But
wait, hang on. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to ask you a question on that. Are you sure it's illegal versus all? The states I've seen, unfortunately, don't disaggregate.
It's a fact. Our viewers can look it up. You may look it up, but the point is,
I'm making the difference between illegal versus legal. That's all.
Right.
And most studies, unfortunately, don't. They lump it together.
Commit crimes, let me finish, at a lower rate than Native Americans and legal immigrants. So, okay, that's fallacy number one. That's a classic Fox News BS point, which you've given me. Secondly, our problem is, and this was exacerbated during the Trump administration, our back door is too open and our front door is too closed. So we have too few legal immigrants. We only do 500,000 H-1B visas a year. That's way too few. Okay, there are millions of tech jobs that are unfulfilled. And as you say, there are a lot more people from great countries like India, from Nigeria, and Nigerian Americans, by the way, have the highest average education level of any type of Americans, just to give you an example. So that's what we need to do, is we need to open up our front door more. Now, as far as the back door goes, I agree. It's a real problem. And the main problem is the asylum system, because you look right now, and 10 years ago, people were trying to sneak across the border, right? Now they're turning themselves in and saying, here, come and get me. I'm claiming asylum. And of course, that's something that the bill that Trump blocked would have fixed, was our broken asylum system. So these are solutions that are very doable. But people have to stop playing politics with it and actually want to get something done. And again, so much of the MAGA appeal is the xenophobia, is the replacement theory. These people are coming to take your jobs, to take your vote, to dilute your influence as an American, when of course it's all BS. Okay, we are a nation of immigrants. As Ronald Reagan said, anyone can be an American. You can live in Japan all your life and not be Japanese. You can spend decades in Paris and not be a Frenchman, but anyone can be an American. So we need to get back to that. But this Fox News stuff about crime and all that, it's just a red herring.
Well, I think any life lost is a life that shouldn't have been lost at all. So I don't think throwing around stats is meaningful to the families of these victims. And there's also the fact that in these cases,
all the American citizens or legal immigrants,
right? But in quite a few of these cases, these illegal immigrants, had mile-long rap sheets, and they were not deported. Or in some cases, they were deported and they came back. So they were known quantities as, in some cases, violent criminals, right? And yet the system,
it's like felons that were Americans that were let out of prison when they shouldn't have been. I agree. But that's a penal system issue. That's not an immigrant issue. Okay. And that,
but the thing is,
we're conflating two different issues here.
No, but it's related in the sense that, again, when anyone, whether it's Trump or conservatives or even conservative Democrats, rational people, anybody, I don't care the labels, when they try to say something about crime, not just crimes committed by illegal immigrants, crimes committed by U.S. citizens, then they're labeled racist, they're labeled xenophobic, they're labeled whatever you want to call, and that's why you have these
labeled by who? Labeled by whom?
The media, the Democrats, they're the
Fox News.
Soros-funded prosecutors go in and they refuse to follow the law. I mean, that's why Chesa Boudin got thrown out of office. But unfortunately, there are a lot of his types that are still in office.
I
I think the
agree.
only reason why he remained is because things had gotten so bad.
But
But
that's a
unfortunately,
justice system issue. Okay? It's not an immigrant issue. Yes, our immigration system is broken. Yes, there are illegal immigrants that get out of jail when they shouldn't and commit crimes, but it happens at a much lower rate than it does for legal immigrants, and even more than legal immigrants, Native Americans. What's the lowest crime rate of any group? Asian Americans. Surprise, surprise. So again, I know this stuff plays well for campaigns, but if you really want to solve the issue, we need to reform parts of our justice system. And believe me, I live in San Francisco. Nobody was happier to see Chesa Boudin go than I. Just like I was happy to see the school board members go when they were, renaming schools for such anti-slave crusaders like Dianne Feinstein instead of getting kids back into school. So we agree on all of that, but I just think there's a conflation of issues going on.
well, I
Give you
think
the last word.
Sure. Well, I think to answer your question, who calls them racist? It's happening now more in the business community as well. So in the aftermath of George Floyd, there was a lot of backlash about criminal justice, but you had people like Ronald Fryer, who's a Harvard, and he's Black, economist, who was shoved out by Claudine Gay before she became the president. She shoved him out because his data showed that police were no more likely to use violent force, lethal force against Black people versus white people. And he was canceled by Claudine Gay. And what's funny is he came and gave a speech down at University of Austin, and my friend was there, and he said, justice is sweet, because Claudine Gay got what she deserved, because she didn't want that narrative out there, but it was true. And so, but he was canceled by academia. The same thing happens in corporate media. The head of Reuters research team, he found similar data, and they threw him out. In fact, he's bringing a lawsuit alleging hostile racial work environment because he's white. And he said the data shows this. And our Reuters journalism, which is seen by billions of people, is putting out lies in the wake of George Floyd. Well, he was canceled. I can go on about this, but I think it's important for us to acknowledge, because you're right, it's both a criminal justice, but it's the intersection of immigration and criminal justice. We should have a whole other episode about that.
And believe me, I am totally with you on higher education. It's hard to think of someone I think less of than Claudine Gay, whether it's the plagiarism, the list goes on and on. So yes, higher education is a mess. Harvard was ranked 263 out of 263rd out of 263 for free speech. But that will have to wait for another show. I think we're going to have to leave it there. So thanks to everyone for joining us once again. It's always great to have you, and we'll see you on the next round of Practically Political. I'm Dave Spencer.
And I'm Carrie Sheffield, and we will catch you next time.